Hello, Namaskar, Vanakkam. I hope all of you are doing well. Today, what I'm going to do with this video is to explain the first chapter of history, which is part of your social science syllabus as per the new textbook, which is from effect from July 2024 for students of class 6 of CBSE. Now, this particular chapter is called Timeline and Sources of History. Very fascinating chapter, and I'm sure you will get to know a lot of things which you were not aware of before. For example, the different kinds of social scientists like archaeologists uh, who actually work to find out, geologists who work to find out how was man hundreds and thousands of years ago. What were the tools he used? What were the kind of drawings he used? When did fire get discovered? And many such things. So, a very fascinating chapter, which will also tell you about how time is to be calculated. So, I look forward to teaching this chapter, and I'm very sure आप सबको काफी मजा आएगा. So, let's get started.
Timeline and sources of history. Now read this interesting quote by E.H. Carr. History is an unending dialogue between the present and the past. यानी कि आज जो हो रहा है, आज की तारीख में जो हो रहा है और जो पीछे हो गया, जो इतिहास में हो गया. सो इतिहास एक तरह का संवाद है, यानी कि the present is talking to the past, or let's say the past is talking to the present, telling the present that this is what happened during my time and you should learn from that, not make the mistakes that happened in my time, and whatever happened good in my time, you should learn from that and improve on that. So history in that sense is an unending dialogue between the present and the past in order to prepare for both the present and the future, between the society of today and the society of yesterday. Very interesting quote. We can fully understand the present only in the light of the past. That only if you understand the past, you would be able to fully understand what's happening in the present. Which is why I find it a little strange when students are not interested in history. कि जब स्टूडेंट्स को इतिहास में रुचि नहीं होती है तो थोड़ा अजीब सा लगता है, because unless you know where you came from, what did your forefathers do, what did your ancestors do, why did something like this happen at that particular stage in world history, unless you know all that, you will never be able to understand the present completely. And let me tell you one more thing. What happens is that students think that, oh, engineering, management, medicine, law is enough. No, it's not enough. Increasingly, okay, what is happening is that there are many companies, including software companies, including IT companies, which prefer students with a more well-rounded personality. In the sense, ऐसा नहीं कि मेरे को सिर्फ coding ही मालूम है. Along with coding, you should be aware of world events, what is happening in different parts of the country, about the cultural traditions, everything. So you need to be a 360-degree, well-rounded personality. And history and civics and geography kind of subjects, the social sciences helps you become that. Okay. So the first chapter of history is timeline and sources of history, into which we are going to get into straight away. This is the National Museum in New Delhi. Okay. Now, how do we learn about the past? Through stories, through photographs, through some kind of inscriptions that we may see. So you will discover in science that the earth has a very long history, of which we humans occupy only a tiny part, which is the most recent past. So now look at the history of the planet, the human past. You had the earth coming into existence some 4.54 billion years ago. Okay. Then you had atmospheric oxygen about 2.3 billion years ago. Then you had bacteria about 1 billion years ago. Then fungi, corals, insects, amphibians, these are all in million years ago. Then more interestingly, you had the discovery of fire about 1 million years ago. Then you had the human beings coming into existence about 300,000 years ago. And then you had the ability to write which happened about 6,500 years ago. Okay, so these three are more recent occurrences, whereas these are all in billion and million years ago. So you realize that man is a much more of a recent occurrence, और हम लोग अपना हाथ जमा के बैठे हैं कि हम भी राज करेंगे. Whereas there are so many things which have been existing in this world, in this planet, on this planet for millions and billions of years. Okay. Now, when you talk about the history of the earth, there are many people who are trained to do the job. जिनको की ये काबिलियत है, who have the skills to understand the history of the earth and to study it. Some of them are trained to uncover the secrets beneath the earth's surface and learn about its past. So, who are these people? Sorry, my throat is in bad shape. One is are the geologists, then there are the paleontologists, then there are the anthropologists, and finally the archaeologists. Who are these? You need to know the definitions and the very sorry, pardon me. You need to understand the difference between these four. All four are involved in the study of the past of the earth. Geologists, they study the physical features of the earth, yani ki mitti, soil, the stones, the mountains, the pahad, the rivers, the seas, the ocean, all the physical features which are present on the surface of the earth, that is studied by the geologists. In fact, there are geology institutes in different parts of India, including one in Hyderabad. So these do some very good work in understanding the geological study of the earth. They do the geological study of the earth. The second one category is paleontologists. They study the remains of plants, animals, and humans from millions of years ago in the form of fossils. यानी कि जो plant पूरा degrade होके it has become a fossil or animal fossils, right? You know, that's how we were able to know that dinosaurs at one stage walked on the surface of the earth, and that led to the movie called Jurassic Park, right? So unless you are able to discover that, oh, such huge creatures also walked on the surface of the earth at one point in time, you think, wow, how do we know that? Because of paleontologists. They are the ones who were able to tell for sure that creatures like the mighty dinosaurs also walked on the surface of the earth at one point in time, millions of years ago. Then the third category is that of anthropologists. Now, anthropologists is slightly different from paleontologists and geologists and archaeologists. Anthropology is the study of human society and culture from the past. So what happens is that they go to, let's say, a tribal community in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, especially Nicobar Islands. Okay. उन ट्राइबल उन आदिवासियों के साथ बैठ के they try to find out, and now it has become very scientific through DNA testing, through fingerprint testing, right? Through blood testing, you can try to trace their ancestors as to where they may have come from. Now, it's quite possible, and it's not specific to Nicobar Islands, it's quite possible that you may meet some group of Adivasis. Now, these Adivasis may have migrated from some other part of India or some other part of the world to that particular past thousands of years ago, right? So you try to trace back, where could they have come from, and you understand their past. That is called anthropology, when you study human society and their culture from the oldest time to the present. Okay. I will show you one book. Just hold on a second. This is a book, and I hope you can see it on the screen. This is a book which is called an anthropological atlas, okay, which kind of talks about, and if you're looking at the atlas, the index that you can see, there are talking about language, they're talking about how they cooked food, how they got their water, how they drew, what kind of labor they did, what kind of animals they reared, right? So all those things come under anthropological. So you talk about different kind of, for example, if you see this, and I hope you can see this in the small box, you can see this hunting and gathering. right? So based on that, you will be able to kind of talk about in different states of today's modern India, how you could do that. This is another book which is on Andaman, Nicobar and Lakshadweep Islands, which is more of an environmental essay, and I got this book out also. I got lots of such books. So that is called anthropology. Then finally, the category called archaeologists, who dig up. You must have heard of archaeological excavation. There's an Archaeological Survey of India, ASI, which is responsible for all the monuments in the country, like Red Fort, like Taj Mahal, like all the old monuments are responsibility of the ASI, the Charminar in Hyderabad. So archaeological, you would have heard of Harappa excavations, you would have heard of Mohenjo-daro, etc. So what they do is to kind of excavate, and by digging up remains that people, plants, and animals left behind, such as they look at tools, what kind of pots were used by those people, what kind of toys were used, what kind of bones and teeth of animals and humans, bricks, etc., by which they can kind of trace that, okay, this particular civilization was in the this particular century, 6th century or 8th century. You generally get an idea from that. So that's the job. So you need to know about these 4 categories clearly. Okay, I hope you have understood. Fossils are impressions or footprints or parts of plants or animals that are found preserved within layers of rocks. So these are all known. So it could be like rocks, it could be plant fossils or animal fossils, etc. That's what constitutes, and that's what is used by paleontologists. Now, how is time measured in history? Now, every society has a way of measuring time. Okay, samay. What we now have is the Gregorian calendar, which is essentially 12 months, 365 days, and a leap year once every 4 years. But then there are also the Tamil calendar, the Malayalam calendar, the Muslim calendar, the Jewish, Chinese. There are different calendars, right? So what happens is, in the West, the conventional year for Jesus Christ's birth has been taken to be the starting point, which is why you have before Christ, and then you have an abbreviation for a Latin phrase, which is AD, which is for after Jesus' birth. But now it is known as the Common Era or CE. So these days, more we don't use the word abbreviation AD. Isko aapko janna zyada zaruri hai, which is called Common Era. So 1947, which is the year of India's independence, is also known as 1947 CE, that is Common Era. The years before the birth of Christ are known now as Before Common Era or BCE. So now what happened was, Gautam Buddha, Lord Gautam Buddha, was born 560 years before Christ. So the approximate year of Gautam Buddha, okay, is 560 BCE. Okay, that he was born 560 BCE is the approximate year of the birth of Gautam Buddha. Okay, you see here, this is how 300,000 years before Christ, 40,000 years before Christ is when you have the first examples of rock art in the world, which has been done as a result of archaeologists and geologists' work, right? Then you have the same chart continuing here. You have the end of the Ice Age around 12,000 years before Christ. Then you have here the birth of Buddha, and then this is the birth of Jesus. So there is a gap of 560 years, and we are here in 2024. Okay, so beginning of copper metallurgy, it is around this stage. Okay, it is around this stage, which would be around 4,400 years before Christ. So that's how it happens. So now, if you see in the Gregorian calendar, this is an interesting thing, that there is no 0 year. That is, the first year after Christ began immediately after the last year before Christ. Okay, so you have first year before, 1 before Christ, there is no 0, and immediately there is 1. So if you were to kind of calculate the year of birth of Gautam Buddha, it would be 2024, that is today, plus 560 minus 1. So 2,583 years ago was when he was born. But suppose you are doing the same calculation in 2026, then it will become 2585, depending on the year. Now, a timeline is always a useful tool because that's how you know, okay, this happened before, this happened after, with the birth of Jesus Christ as some kind of a benchmark, as some kind of a standard line. So you have 560 BCE, Gautam Buddha's birth, before the birth of Jesus Christ, and this is where you are right now. Okay. Now, a timeline also helps us understand the timeline in which the events took place. So, a century is a period of 100 years. ये तो सबको मालूम है, just like in sports, in cricket. Then, specific years are counted every 100 years, starting from 1 CE. So, currently we are in the 21st century, which runs from 2001. It will run till 2100. If all of you are alive in the year 2100, then you will see 2101 also being counted. I remember when we were moving, you were not born then. We were moving from 1999 to 2000. It was a big thing. It was known as the Y2K year. Okay. Because it was 2000 now. 2000. So it used to be year 2000. That's how it used to be called. So it used to be called as the Y2K year. And it was a big thing. You know, IT companies ka problem kya tha? Because many people would write, let's say, the 8th of December. Okay. We would write it as 99. So, usse pehle 00, we would not write 1999, 99. So 00 was seen as 1900. So everybody was very worried that computers will all go back in time to 1900. So a lot of adjustments had to be made that it has to move from 99 to 2000. Samjhe? So I remember 1999, 2000, December to January was a big event at that time. It was called the Y2K time. So the centuries BCE are calculated beginning from the year 1 BCE and going back in time. So 3rd century BCE would mean 300 years, 300 to 201 before Christ. Okay. Millennium is a period of 1000 years. Century 100 years. Millennium would be a period of 1000 years. In history, specific centuries are counted every 1000 years. For example, we are now in the 3rd millennium, current era, common era, which began in 2001 and it will go up to 3000 CE. Of course, none of us will be alive at that time. Okay. As with centuries, millennium BCE are also calculated starting from 1 BCE and go backward. So first millennium BCE will be from first BCE to 1000 BCE. So that's how it kind of work. And the plural of millennium is both millenniums or millennia. Both are correct. You would have seen in astrological chart, koi pandit ji agar aate hain, they make what is called a panchanga. Okay. Ugadi kind of functions pe, Telugus वगैरह में, Karnataka वगैरह में पंचांग पढ़ते हैं. Okay. To predict the future over the next 365 days. So they predict solar eclipse, that this solar eclipse is good, this solar eclipse is not very good, lunar eclipse. So they kind of give weather predictions, whether it will be good for agriculture, for festivals, for general prosperity, etc. So this is something which you should know in the historical context of India. Now, what are the sources of history? Now, source of history ka matlab kya hai? A place, a person, a text, or an object. For instance, agar aap koi gufa mein jaye, you go into a cave and you find some drawings made there. People hundreds of thousands of years ago. So you need to think, oh, this was made during that time, right? So it gives you an idea that, oh, people could draw even at that stage, right? So it gives you some information about some event. Have you gone to Ajanta or Ellora? Have you seen any of the Chola temples in Tamil Nadu? Have you seen some of the Elephanta caves in Mumbai, right? So have you seen the Araku caves in Vishakhapatnam? So when you see all these things, you get an idea about, oh, people at that time also could do this. The Cholas could do this, rock cut temples they could make, huge temples they could make. So आजकल बाहुबली में graphics से होता है, but at that time people actually did that. They are all what are engineering marvels. So you can create this kind of a table with your family. Okay. Now, have you ever seen old coins, books, clothes, utensils, or jewelry in and around your house? What kind of information? For example, your mother may show your grandmother's jewelry. वो jewelry आप देखेंगे will have some inscription which conveys something about that time. उस समय पर टेम्पल का आर्किटेक्चर ऐसा था. That may have found its way into the way the jewelry was made, right? Or some old coins, right? जैसे हैदराबाद में you find a lot of old Nizam time coins. So which kind of indicates that Nizam was the richest man in the world at that time. So what kind of coins he would make? What was inscribed on those coins? So from that you get an idea about the kind of rule that was there at that time in a particular region. So every object tells a story. This is important. It tells a story, and it is like a piece in a jigsaw puzzle that if you fit the puzzle, you will know, oh, aisa hota tha, right? So let me see if there are any photographs or just a report. 1 second. Sorry, maps. All these are maps. They're all India maps. Okay. So we can put together historical events through a variety of sources and solve that jigsaw puzzle. Now, this particular table is very important. This kind of mind map is very important. So when you see inscriptions, inscriptions are generally inside caves, etc. So you would have them on copper plates, you will have them on coins, or you would have them on some kind of likhavat manuscript ke upar. Okay. Then you will have oral sources, that is stories told from generations. So this could be genealogical in nature, or it could be folklore in nature. You know, ki, folklore is essentially telling stories. Then you have the Indian literature, Ved, Puran, jo hai, Bhagavad Gita, etc. Then you have poems and plays from that time, historical texts or stories, or any kind of technological text. Then you have structures like the monuments, yeah, some kind of rough structure. These are archaeological sources. For instance, let's say a fort called the Red Fort or the Chola Temple. It tells you something about the Chola history or about the Mughal history. Similarly, excavations, which are like Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, etc. The plant and human thing, which is also done by paleontologists. To what kind of tools and what kind of utensils, weapons, etc. they used, pottery, their burial place, what kind of ornaments did the women wear. So this is all done by excavation. So isse bhi you get to know about history. Then paintings, sculptures, panels, these are all artistic sources, because tab bhi log paint वगैरह करते होंगे ना. So there will be some artistic people. Then foreign accounts like Vasco da Gama came to India, Columbus came to India. So these are all travelogues or historical stories, chronicles. So this mind map is very important. You get to know about, these are the different sources from which you get to know about past history. Then a historian is a person who studies and writes about the past. Now, historian study, say a king or a queen, let's say Emperor Akbar. Okay, 1500 saal pehle, whatever number of years, or an ancient monument, okay, or a war, you know, this particular Anglo-Maratha war took place. Okay, so you get to know that this is how the East India Company came into India via Surat in Gujarat, right? This is how they came. They started as traders. So unless you know anything about any kind of recorded history, you will never come to know that, oh, this is how the British came into India. हमको तो पता ही नहीं था, right? In the 17th century. Now, sometimes the sources confirm each other, or sometimes they may not. Okay. Now, historians themselves, but also archaeologists, epigraphists. Now, epigraphists are people who study ancient inscriptions. Anthropologists who study human societies and their cultures, experts in literature. Now, these are the different kinds. Iske baare mein you don't need to this thing. But essentially now what is happening is that what I just gave you the example of the tribes from Nicobar or any other part, that through genetic study, you are able to see that, oh, these people have the same genes as this people, which means that this particular two people were close to each other at some point of time, or maybe came from the same family tree. So genetics is the branch of biology that studies in plants or animals or humans certain features or characteristics get passed from one generation to the other. That let's assume that one particular tribe, all of them have very cat-like eyes, and you find another tribe in another part of the country or another part of the world which has similar features. And then if you genetically match the two tribes, and genetically you need a piece of nail, you need a piece of hair, you need a piece of sweat, you can actually extract DNA from that. So with DNA mapping, you can try to see whether these two tribes had any kind of similarities or whether they came from the same family tree. That's what is fascinating about how modern science has made the field of finding out about history so very fascinating. So history and science एक तरह से merge हो जाते हैं यहाँ पर आके, which is why this is no longer called social studies, it is called social science. Okay, understood? Now, these are coins. You can see some inscription, and from there you can see that, oh, this is how they ruled. And you can see some kind of writing also in different languages. It could be Arabic, Urdu, Sanskrit, whatever, right? Devanagari. Now, these are all the different inscriptions on different temples and monuments of India. This is the Ashoka pillar, right? The Sarnath one. From where the Ashoka emblem was taken for the government of India. Now, beginnings of human history. Now, modern humans, that is Homo sapiens, have walked the planet for 3 lakh years, okay, 300,000 years. Now, this appears to be a long time, but in terms of the overall history of the earth, it's a very small fraction, because overall history of the years has existed for over billions of years. Now, here in this drawing, you see this particular person is actually drawing all this on the roof of the cave or on the walls of the cave, right? So when you find this, you realize that, oh, this is what is happening, that, the mother and the child are going somewhere. Here he has drawn cattle. So you'll realize that, oh, they were into cattle rearing. Okay, so is tarah ka livestock they used to have. Then you have these kind of dresses which are being drawn, which means that they were bare chested and they would just wear something here. So, and yahan par aag dikhai hai, which means that they were burning fire, they were using fire, they had discovered fire. So with all these drawings that you find on the caves, etc., you are able to find out that this is how man lived so many hundreds of years ago in this part of the country or this part of the world. Okay. Now, early humans faced many challenges from nature and lived in bands, and they were nomads, moved from one place to another, and they were constantly seeking shelter and food, and they were mainly hunters, that they would kill animals and eat them or gather food from the forest. So they relied on hunting and collecting edible matlab jo ki khaya ja sake, plants and fruits for their survival, because though they had discovered fire and subsequently they began to learn to cook also. So also they had certain beliefs about afterlife. Afterlife matlab marne ke baad bhi ek जीवन है करके ऐसी धारणा होती थी. People used to have the belief that even after somebody died, there used to be rebirth. So they had some kind of ideas about afterlife also. So these groups lived in temporary camps. As I said, they were nomads moving from place A to place B, rock shelters or caves, and communicated with each other using languages which are now lost. I mean, they would not be speaking in English or in Hindi or in Tamil or in Telugu. They would have had their own kind of language. But over a period of time, that language, see, our languages have also got mixed up. And aaj ka jo language hai, it is very refined kind of language, which may also change in the next 100 years. So what happens is that language is now lost because over generations, people have forgotten what that language was. They used fire and started making objects in order to make their lives easier, like weapons in order to go for hunting, like improved stone axes, blades, arrowheads, and other tools. Aspects of their life are visible in rock paintings found in hundreds of caves, jaise maine mentioned kiya. These kind of depict simple figures or symbols. Some are more detailed. In time, these early humans learned to make simple ornaments such as stone or shell beads for the women to wear or even for men to wear, right? So that's how they used to do pendants made of animal teeth. छोटे में बहुत होता था, tiger teeth के साथ pendant बनता था, gold chain के साथ बच्चों को पहनाते थे in order to kind of protect the child, and that used to be the belief. So all those things were there. These are all things which are passed on from generation to generation. Now we talk about the crops. Earlier ऐसा होता था, जो पहला ग्राफ में हमने देखा पिक्चर में, that there used to be something called the ice age, when the entire planet was actually covered with ice. Okay, it was like a freezer, but then the ice melted and continents started getting formed, and you will learn about this in the science subject chapters. So when the climate warmed up, the ice melted, and that kind of resulted in rivers and oceans, etc. And the last ice age lasted from 100,000 years to about 12,000 years ago. Okay, so 12,000 साल तक भी ice age था कुछ भागों में on the earth. And then living conditions started improving for human beings. They settled down, they cultivated cereals and grains, यानी कि अलग-अलग तरह के crops उगाने लगे. They started domesticating, they started rearing cattle, grazing, etc. And they started kind of using water, etc., from rivers, etc., to make the soil, to use it for the soil in order to grow crops. So over a period of time, trial and error methods say they learned a lot of things. Okay. So this is how you look at this particular photograph. What does it show? Now, this person is also a hunter because he's using a sharp object by which he may go hunting. You see, there are the sheep rearing, so which means he's going in for cattle rearing. So there are a lot of sheep and goats and cows, etc. Then he's using some tools. So he's a toolsmith. She's using fire. So fire has been discovered. They are having these kind of thatched roofs. So this is the kind of houses they used to live in. They used to grow crops, and these people are all harvesting and taking away the crop, which means they knew about agriculture. They used to grow vegetables by which they used to cook, right? So you get to know, look at the kind of dresses that they are wearing out here, right? So you get an idea about life at that time. And these are all been made because of the drawings that they have left behind on different walls of different rocks, etc. Okay, or because of archaeology, because लोग चले जाते थे, then these kind of vessels, etc., would be found by archaeologists, and they would get an idea that, oh, this is the kind of life these people must have led at that point in time. So men and women are given certain rules, right? So it's not a thing like women may help prepare colors for painting, or they may do all the cooking or take care of the children. The men may be going in for hunting. So those were the roles which they used at that point in time. As communities grew, so did their social complexity. There were chieftains who were the leaders of that particular community, and they would work for the welfare of their community. Hamlets ka matlab small villages kind of thing. You know, it says even smaller than villages, where there would be a group of only a few houses that would be known as a hamlet. Is word ko dhyan rakhna. And they exchange woods, like, you know, उस समय पर currency नहीं होती थी पहले. So I would give you cloth, you would give me some food. So there would be what was known as a barter system. Okay, a barter system which did not rely on currency. Okay, that's what they would use. And pottery could include things like copper, then later on iron, as they discovered new and new minerals and metals. So this is how civilization really started, and उसके बारे में हम अगले चैप्टर में पढ़ेंगे. So this is how civilization really started, and this is the recap of that. We have understood the historical events, we understood how time used to be measured, and what are the sources of history कि जिसकी वजह से हमको इतिहास के बारे में पता चलता है, and how humans really developed. So now I will meet you in the next chapter of history, in which we will take few more steps so that आपको ज्यादा से ज्यादा clarity मिलेगी. As I said, the focus now is to make you understand. We will do question and answer separately. आपका साथ नहीं छोड़ूंगा. Everything will be explained. We will this thing, and also I will tell you which reference books to buy so that you are very well prepared. And once that is done, you will be absolutely prepared in order to face the examination. I hope you have understood this particular chapter clearly without any doubts. Okay, any doubts, write in the comment section. Tata, bye bye, namaskar, God bless you.